Everybody has a burden. We all have struggles. There are hard times in everybody's life, and you don't want to miss out. I don't want this negative thing that's in our life to rob us of any joy that the day may hold for us. You know, it's just kind of the human condition. We're all going to die one day, and none of us know exactly when that day is. So in a way, this is just kind of a blessing that you just are forced to make the most of every day, that's your focus. So we're trying to do the best we can with all that, for sure.
Hey everyone, this is Rod Cade, and welcome to this week's episode of Rocket Motivation. I'm so thankful that this week's guest is coming on to tell her story. She was diagnosed with breast cancer in October 2016. After months of chemotherapy, surgery, and radiation, she was cancer-free. Unfortunately, the cancer has just recently returned. It is metastasized in her lungs and upper spine. She's begun chemo and immunotherapy and is fighting this cancer with everything she has, including the support of her family, her job as a physical therapist, and her faith in God.
3, 2, 1.
Kristye Chastang, welcome to Rocket Motivation.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
All right. And I know, Kristye, this is going to be an emotional episode, and I'm just so glad you're coming in because I think it's going to help, other women that are going through this and other people that are going through this. But so let's start with, kind of tell us where you presently are in your life with your family, where you live, your job, that kind of stuff.
So I live in Bay Minette, Alabama, and we have 3 kids. My husband, Pelham, and I have been married for 26 years now. And we have a son that's 24. We have a daughter that's 22, and we have another daughter that is almost 17. She turned 17 this Friday. So just real thankful. Austin has recently graduated from undergraduate, going to PA school in the summer, and Lauren is finishing up her time at Kennesaw State as a volleyball player there. And Caroline is at Bayside Academy and just thriving and playing sports, everything she enjoys doing there. So with them being so busy, Pelham and I just check their calendar, and that's where we head out every weekend. It seems like wherever they're going to be, that's where we head. I work at the Buckaroo Barn, which is just right outside my back door, which is pretty incredible. It's a physical therapy clinic, and we use horses and the movement of the horses as our treatment tool when we do physical therapy. We put kids that have disabilities, and some adults as well, on horseback for their therapy session, and just have seen amazing results with that. So just so grateful that I get to do that every week. And I work in the school system as well, 2 days a week as a physical therapist. So it's kind of like my week in a nutshell there.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's good. That was a good summary. And I want to talk a little bit more about the Buckaroo Barn because, as you know, you invited me out there to look at, what you guys do out there. And it's just phenomenal. For the listeners, what's going on out there, they've got usually 2 horses going on at one time. And when I was out there were kids with, differing disabilities, but they walk the horses around and there's therapists around. And so they're working on their core. They're strengthening their core muscles. And I mean, it is really something. But Kristye, tell me, how rewarding and inspirational is it for you to be doing that job with those kids and those parents?
Everybody's like, that's just so cool that you do that. And how rewarding is that? And it is absolutely so rewarding to be able to do that kind of work. But I tell you, I am the one that is blessed, and I am the one that is inspired on a daily basis. These kids are working so hard. The horse is constantly moving, challenging them more than any other therapy setting throughout the whole session. And we are asking them to work really hard when they're at the barn because we get to use the horse, and we get to trick them into thinking this is really fun to work really hard. They work super hard. So the kids just completely inspire me. It's hard to have a bad day out at the barn when you're around these kids that have these physical struggles and they are giving it their all. Some of them are just trying so hard to hold their head up to look at you when you talk. And then we've got some that are, trying to learn to take their first steps. Some of them are trying to learn to just sit up on their own. So I am inspired daily by my patients. So it's very cool that I get to do that. And so it's hard for me to feel sorry for myself out there. And then the parents, just the sacrifice that these parents make. As a mom, you won't ever hear me complain going to ball games or taking my kids to practice, because these parents and the sacrifices that they make, and some of them drive 2 hours one way to bring their kid to therapy and just to maybe watch them take their first step. So as a parent, it has really helped my perspective and just made me feel incredibly grateful for the blessings that we have as a family, and just incredibly inspired and grateful to be able to be a part of all those families' journeys.
Right. And we'll circle back to this when we talk about what you're going through and how it helps you out. But let's go back to 2016. You first get diagnosed with breast cancer. So, how did that come about?
Oh, well, in the summer, I can't really pinpoint exactly when in the summer. It was June, July. I kind of noticed a little sore knot, kind of like the size of a BB under my armpit. And I honestly thought it was a lymph node that was just, sometimes you get little sore lymph nodes when you have a sore throat or have a little scratch or something. And I just noticed it, and it stayed there throughout the summer. And I had my OBGYN just annual checkup in August. So I was like, okay, good. We'll just kind of check this out, make sure it's good. But I really honestly didn't think it was breast tissue at all because of the location of it. It was literally in my armpit. So had my annual exam, my breast exam, my mammogram, everything was fine. So just kind of got a false sense of security that everything was fine. Kind of rocked on, and the next month in September, it was still there, still sore, and seemed to be getting a little bit bigger. And I had a friend that also works at an OBGYN clinic, and I just asked her about it. And she said, you need to just go double check that. Why don't you get an appointment and go back and just circle back around with your doctor about that? And so I went back for just a revisit on that. And at that time, my doctor still thought that it was a lymph node and not my breast tissue. But he still was concerned that if it had been there all summer, that we needed to get it checked. So he sent me to a surgeon just for a consult. Went to a surgeon, had a needle biopsy, and I could just kind of tell the way that doctor was matter of fact with me, what we might be looking at, that this might be something we might need to be concerned about. I was walking into one of my daughter's volleyball game. She was a senior. My middle daughter was a senior that year. I was walking into her volleyball game, got the phone call that, hey, this is very suspicious. It's fast-growing cells. We need to do a needle biopsy. So went to the hospital in Mobile, had a ultrasound-guided core biopsy of that place. And it was my daughter's regional championships in Montgomery that I got the phone call from the doctor that it was in fact cancer, and it was grade 3 on a scale of 1 to 3. It was a 3, which means it's very fast growing. It was a 93% on that scale, so it was a fast growing kind of breast cancer. And so just kind of sat on that information, my husband and I guess other sport families might understand this. It might seem weird to other people, but my daughter was a senior, and they were going for the 16th straight state championship. They had a streak of winning the state championship for 16 years. And so she was a senior, a lot of pressure on her, did not want to take away from that journey, from that moment in her life, didn't want the heaviness of my situation to rob us of that experience, to take any of her focus away from that. So the next week we went to the state championship and they won. And so that was a lot of fun, but just kind of sitting on that information and, my husband and I just keeping that to ourselves was a little tough, but we did. And then the following weekend we were able to talk to our family. My son was freshman in college. And so he came home from school that weekend and we had all the kids together and we told them. And that was just the hardest day. Just as a mom, you worry about your kids and your family more than you worry about yourself. And so I just worried about their heart and how they would handle it. But just was it's a hard day, but I've just continued to just be so proud of how strong my kids have been through all this.
So you begin treatment, right? You got chemo, then you have surgery, then you got radiation.
Right.
How tough was that to go through?
Ooh, well, chemo was pretty hard. I had to start with that because we had let it go a little further, just grow a little bit bigger than we should have, because we didn't really realize what was going on at first, just with the mammogram missing it. And so because I was young, because I was healthy, I told my doctor was very aggressive, and we were just like, throw everything you have at it and let's fight this thing as hard as we can. And so I did the AC treatment, which is makes you nauseous, makes you tired, makes you lose your hair, all that good stuff. But, as hard as it was, I continued to try to live as normally as possible. Kind of a little side note about the Buckaroo Barn. So this was kind of just God blessed us through all this. The Buckaroo Barn is a wonderful place to work. I love it. It has been the best thing that we've ever done as a family. It's our ministry. We do it because we know it helps people, and we do it because it truly has become our ministry out there. We have very little profit margin out there. A lot of the kids that come out there have Medicaid, and so that's the lowest reimbursement rate that you get as a therapist. And you've seen it takes 3 people to do one session with a kid. And so the overhead's really high out there. So I pay my staff, but I don't pay myself. And so when I knew that I was going to have to go through chemo and not be able to work those days that I was doing chemo, and then through the time that I had surgery, it was a little scary financially for the barn, just knowing that I was going to have to pay somebody to be in my spot, and that spot usually wasn't a paid position. 2 weeks before my diagnosis, there was a charitable golf tournament that a local company put on and donated just about to the dollar the exact amount 2 weeks before this that it was going to cost for a PTA to take my place the days that I was going to have to miss work. And so the fact that God just answered that prayer before we even realized we had a need was just pretty incredible. So I was able to do chemo on Wednesday, have somebody cover me at the barn, take Thursday, Friday off, and then I was working the next week, and then the next Monday, Tuesday before I had chemo. And it was hard. I wasn't over time. I lost a little bit of strength, but working helped me keep my strength. That helped me keep my perspective and my physical strength.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, not only your physical strength, but I mean, you're going through what you're going through. I mean, you're fighting the cancer, and I know your main concern is not you, it's your family. So you're going through that. You got some, your emotional struggles. How did it help you being at the barn, working with those kids who are struggling?
There is so much joy at the barn. We celebrate every little thing that those kids do at the barn, and those kids are working so hard. It's just hard to have a bad day out there. That motivated me, as well as just giving me a sense of purpose for continuing to stay strong for those kids as well, because I didn't want that to stop. And so I was motivated by them, and they kept me strong, letting me continue to, even though I was the bald lady that looked a little different than I used to, they didn't seem to be bothered by that. Mm-hmm. But so we kept keeping on, and I truly think that helped me physically and mentally to get through that time.
Well, so the first cancer you get back in 2016, so you go through the chemo, you go through the surgery, you go through the radiations, but you beat it. You beat that cancer, and it was gone for, how long was it gone until it came back?
This past December, I went back, and this was like my 4-year follow-up. So at that time, my doctor said, we're not going to say you're cured. We're not going to say you're completely cancer-free until your scans are clear for 5 years. So we're getting so close to that 5-year mark, and it was at my 4-year follow-up. just a routine. My doctor wanted to do a mammogram just before I came in to see him, and I just as a woman, you just follow your gut and be your own advocate. I just insisted that they do a breast MRI instead of a mammogram because the mammogram missed it the very first time. And so I was not confident that a mammogram would truly give me a true picture of what was going on with me. So my doctor ended up ordering a breast MRI, and that MRI came back and showed that there were 2 lymph nodes in my armpit that were still left behind that looked very suspicious. So went from that appointment to go do another core biopsy of those lymph nodes, and that biopsy came back that the cancer was back. But there were some other things in my lungs and some lymph nodes in my central chest that were lighting up a little bit, but were not just as bright as what was in my armpit. So we went ahead and had surgery to get those nodes that were in my armpit gone. We took those out the 23rd of December. They decided just to kind of keep an eye on what was going on in my chest. They were hoping my daughter had donated blood a week or 2 before and came back that she had the antibodies to COVID. Did not know she had COVID. I didn't ever think I had COVID, but just with that information, they were thinking maybe there was some respiratory inflammation, and inflammation shows up on scans just like cancer does. So decided just to kind of keep an eye on what was going on in my chest. So recovered from surgery and did another CT scan. Not a whole lot was changed. Still stuff in my lungs, but still just hard to tell for sure. And it was in spots that it would be hard to do a biopsy. And so waited again. And week before last, I had a third scan that all of that was still there, still concerning lymph nodes, spots in my lungs, and the radiologist also noticed some spots on my thoracic spine. So had an MRI last Monday of my thoracic spine, and they have determined that it has spread to my lungs and my spine. And so from the original biopsy tissue, they had already done genetic mapping of the tissue, and they knew as soon as we figured out exactly what we were dealing with that what kind of therapy would work. So already had that ready to roll.
And you've already actually started.
I started last Wednesday. When we got that result of that MRI back Monday, we put everything in hyperspeed and got started with chemo and immunotherapy last Wednesday.
I guess one of the good things, though, is with the advancements in medical technology, if this would have been 4 or 5 years ago, there may not have been much of a chance. But now, with the advancement, you got a fighting chance.
I feel really good. I feel really good about our path forward. My nurse even told me exactly what you just said. She said, no matter what is going on, no matter how much we're looking at here, we've got something to treat it. She said 10 years ago, if you'd been sitting in that chair, we wouldn't have been able to do that. But because of the breast cancer research that they've done, it is just amazing, the promising drugs and the promising therapies that they have for women. Like when I got through 4 years ago with treatment, he even told me if it came back, there wouldn't be much he could do. And here we are, we're fighting this thing. I feel really good. Our hope is that this immunotherapy and this chemo in combination will get the cancer into remission. They've added a drug that will strengthen my bones, that, whatever part of my bones the cancer eats away, it will basically plug that back in. And so just really hopeful that this is going to do the trick and I will get in a good remission, and then I'll be able to stop the chemo at that point and just continue the immunotherapy just to keep my body and my immune system strong, fighting against anything that might ever want to try to rear its ugly head again.
Well, and let me ask you this, and I know this is going to be a hard question to answer, but it's like you were doing fine after the initial one, and then here it comes back again. And so then you got to tell your family again, your kids, and what's going through your mind at that point?
As a mom, you just want what's best for your kids and for your family. And I just was worried about their heart. I don't want anything to derail them from living their best life and them living their dreams. And so honestly, that is my biggest concern. The morning I found out, my devotion that morning just happened to be in Ecclesiastes, and it's, the verse where there's a time for this, there's a time for that. The biggest thing that stood out to me, and I've kind of got my own little personal paraphrase of that verse now, is there's a time for mourning and there's a time for dancing. And I had just insisted with my family that today we're dancing. Today is the day that we're dancing. We are blessed with time together today, and we're going to make the most of it. And that is just what I hope, that they won't be distracted by this. I hope they won't be, that this won't be anything they stumble over with their faith. That was so hard to tell them that it was back, but we had the sweetest but the hardest. It was probably the hardest day, but the sweetest time together as a family. And they each prayed just the sweetest, strongest prayers. And just, gosh, as a mom, that is your hope, is that your kids are secure in their eternity with our Lord and Savior. And just the strength of their faith just encourages me. And I'm just so proud of them. And it was just a really sweet time, but hard. And they seem to be doing really good. I'm proud of all of them. They just seem to be living every day to the fullest and chasing their dreams. And that's as a mom what you want.
Well, and which I would assume that knowing that's going to make you fight even harder.
Yes, absolutely. Like, it makes me so happy to see them doing their thing. It would make me feel bad if they were slowed down or if they were sad. I want our time together to be, none of us know. It's just kind of the human condition. We're all going to die one day, and none of us know exactly when that day is. So in a way, this is just kind of a blessing that you just are forced to make the most of every day, that's your focus. So we're trying to do the best we can with all that, for sure.
The show Rocket Motivation is all about overcoming adversity. What would you tell other women who are going through their cancer fight right now? What advice would you give them?
I would just encourage them to lean in on God. God can give you a peace in your heart and your soul that the perspective that we have in this world is just so different than God's perspective. As humans, we just see things from a worldly perspective. How does it affect us in this human body? How does it affect us in this world today? And God just works in a plane of understanding that we don't always get. And He has blessed me with such a peace about the fact that it's going to be okay. And that has just been such a blessing. I don't stay up at night worried about my health. I know that God's going to heal me either on this side or the other side of glory. I pray on this side for sure, but just lean in on your relationship with God, and His Holy Spirit truly can help you have strength and peace that our worldly mind just cannot grasp. Lean in on your family. And the other thing, just something I've learned through helping, seeing friends go through things, but also your friends want to help you. And your family want to do things for you, and just let them. I'm a little stubborn, and I like to be tough and strong, but I found that just letting people do things for you is a blessing to them. So don't take other people's blessing away when they want to help you, when they want to do something for you. When just let people help you, let people bless you. That only strengthens your relationship with that person. That person feels like they're doing something to help you when it's a situation where you feel pretty helpless. My family, we're depending on the doctors and on our Lord to take care of this, and they can't heal me, but they can do things to love on me and to help me, and I've had to let them do that.
So just adversity in general, people, we all go through tough times. Fortunately, most of us don't go through, I say most of us don't go through as tough as what you're going through, but some people go through as tough and some people go through worse stuff. So, what have you learned about yourself from going through this? So
you're so right. Like, everybody has a burden. We all have struggles. There are hard times in everybody's life, and something I truly believe that adversity helps you become who God intends you to be. God can use everything for our good. God can use hard times to build our character, to help us become the people that He wants us to be. We can, in turn, help others that are going through the same thing. But I truly believe that God can use all circumstances that we have in our life for good. And that kind of goes back to, doesn't always seem good from our worldly perspective, but from a character, from a faith standpoint, God uses trying times to draw us in and to build up our character and help us become who we're intended to be, I believe.
Well, what do you think this adversity that you're working through and you're fighting and you're trying to overcome, what has it shown who you were intended to be?
I just hope that the way I handle this, the way our family is handling this, I just hope that we point people to God through all of this. I hope that He gets the glory for all of the things the way that we've been able to handle this and the way that we've been able to get through this, because He truly has been my backbone and has given me the strength and the perspective to stay positive, to stay focused on the goodness of the day and the blessings of the day.
And let me ask you that too. I mean, when you're going through stuff like this, I think people that go through some struggles and stuff, that you start looking at the small advancements. I mean, small improvements, small blessings in your life, do you find that as you're going through this, that the smaller things in life become so much more significant?
Absolutely. I don't want this negative thing that's in our life to rob us of any joy that the day may hold for us. And there are so many blessings. Gosh, today was beautiful, and the flowers that were blooming and the giggles of the kids and just the joy of the day. You just truly soak it in, and you truly just appreciate things a little bit more, I think. You definitely don't take anything for granted or a day for granted. And that can be a big blessing, because I think sometimes we just kind of get caught up in our schedules and the busyness of our to-do list as moms, and we kind of forget to take our blinders off and look around at all the blessings. And I mean, that's what gets you through the hard times, is making sure you are grateful for the things that are good and that are worthy of being thankful for. And you got to just focus on the good, for sure. You don't want to miss out.
So, Kristye, I want to thank you so much for coming on and telling your story, because I know it hasn't been easy, but I know one thing, that I know how important the Buckaroo Barn is to you in your life. And I know it's financially, I know you do fundraisers and stuff, but if somebody just wants to contribute to the Buckaroo Barn, do you guys have a website that they could go to?
We do. The Buckaroo Barn LLC has its own website, and we have a Facebook page, of course. But the Buckaroo Foundation is probably the direction they would want to go with that. The foundation was started years ago by a mom that just believed in what we did and saw that there was going to be a gap between what insurance was paying and what families were having to pay out of pocket, just with the rising deductibles, with the limited number of therapy visits that kids were getting. And so the foundation was created. And so that is a nonprofit organization that now we have a whole board of amazing people who do fundraisers each year. And the Buckaroo Foundation has its own website and its own Facebook page, so they can look there for updates on the upcoming fundraisers. And that foundation has helped the barn. I think there's probably 20 families this year that they have sponsored, that they have helped those families pay their kids' therapy bills. The foundation has helped a child's family get a wheelchair accessible van. They are just amazing people with an amazing vision for helping families help their kids access the therapy in this world to their utmost potential. So it's pretty awesome. So yeah, check them out. And they not only help support the barn, but the families that their kids need to come to the barn for therapy. So
okay. Well, good. All right, so everybody needs to go check out the Buckaroo Barn Foundation and give some money, because like I said, I've been out there, and it is, what they do is just, it's just phenomenal. the atmosphere out there, the energy, it's really something. But Kristye, again, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I know this hasn't been the easiest thing in the world to do, telling your story, but with all my guests, I like to give them the parting shot. So, anything you can think of that you want to talk about, or some advice you want to give to just the listeners that we hadn't already talked about? Anything that's on your mind, now's the time to do it.
I'm just grateful for the chance to come on here and talk about this for sure. And I just appreciate you and your story. Knowing your story, you are inspiring. So the fact that you even asked me to come on here, I really appreciate that. And I thank you for inspiring me along the way. And I want to encourage everybody that no matter how bad today seems, tomorrow's always a new day. Focus on the positive. Thank God for the blessings and ask him for the strength and courage to get through whatever your struggle is at the moment, and he'll help you.
Kristye, again, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Kristye Chastang's story is a tough one, but she's going to keep battling until she's cancer-free. It's so inspirational the way she's handled her adversity. This episode of Rocket Motivation is in the books. Next week's guest is Gat Caperton. In 1996, at the age of 29, Gat purchased a wood furniture manufacturing business in West Virginia. He's going to tell you his story of perseverance and survival when the bottom dropped out of wood manufacturing in the United States. It's going to be a great episode. See you next week. Rocket Motivation is made possible through the support of Gat Creek. The company builds furniture sustainability in America with a commitment to the health and safety of Gat Creek employees and customers and the environment we all share. Check out their full range of products at gatcreek.com. Thanks for listening to the show. If you're interested in getting my book, Get Back Up, just go to Amazon and put in Get Back Up and my name, Rod Caden. It'll pop right up. I would love it if you would subscribe to the podcast and rate and review the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. I would really appreciate it if you'd share it with a friend. I would like as many people to hear my message as possible. And we'll see you next week. Never give up and always get back up.